Hi, good morning. I'm Rayman and you're watching ASEAN Kita, a show where we explore the stories, challenges and opportunities that lies within the region. Cambodia has once again taken Thailand to the International Court of Justice ICJ, reigniting tensions over historical claims near the Preah Vihear temple. This isn't just a bilateral issue, it's a test for ASEAN's ability to respond to flashpoint within its own backyard. With Malaysia holding the chair this year, the region is watching closely. Will we step up as mediators or retreat behind non-interference? To unpack what this ICJ move means for Cambodia-Thailand ties and what Malaysia can do as ASEAN chair, I'm joined today by Professor Dr. Azmi Hassan, geostrategist at Akademi, Nusantara. Prof, thank you so much for joining us. Let's start with what actually triggered this latest border flare-up. We know the Cambodia-Thai border has been contested for years, but what specific conditions turn a dormant dispute to actual gunfire this time? And why do you think local commanders failed to contain the situation before it escalated?
Yes, true, Amirul. This problem of border dispute between between Cambodia and Thailand has been going on for decades. If we like to blame on the occupier, well, the French left Indochina at that particular time, the late 1950s, without demarcation. The border, not only between Cambodia and also Thailand, but also between Laos. These are called the Emerald Triangle, where the border dispute has been there for a long time. The difference between what's happening right now, or more specifically on the 20th of May, is that one Cambodian soldiers got killed. And you mentioned it rightly, the local commanders should be more responsible because they are the first command. Whether to trigger fire or whether to retreat is up to the commander. And I believe that both commander on the part of Thailand and also Cambodia, they know that it is a very sensitive area. And with this physical altercation, I think it put another burden, as you mentioned, on the Malaysia as the chairman for ASEAN. And Datuk Seranoa has said that the bilateral talks within the Joint Border Committee that has been started, I think, last Friday, but still not concluded, Malaysia as the chairman fully support that particular discussion, Amirul.
Mm-hmm. And Prof, if we compare this incident with the 2008 and 2011 clashes, what key lesson about on-the-ground crisis management seems to have been ignored in this case, Professor?
Yes, truly enough. What's happening on the ground has been, that area is very sensitive. Let me put in this perspective, Amirul. We have problem with Indonesia, Laut Sulawesi, East Sulawesi, no problem there. We have problem with Singapore, but we trying to solve, even though both problems are not being solved yet, we talk to each other. And what's happening on the ground, as you mentioned, the commander, the first rank of fire, I think it is very important for them to understand the sensitivity of this issue. In 2008, I think the most casualty happens there. I think around 28 got killed, and 2011 too. And now it flared up again with one Cambodian soldier got killed. I think it can be resolved. You mentioned earlier that Cambodia has put forward their inquiry to the ICJ. But the problem is that, similar to the previous ICJ decision before this, Thailand said no, they are not interested. They will not respect the ICJ resolution. What they want is a bilateral discussion. And I think that's the way to go. But Cambodia is seen as the weaker part here compared to the military capability. I think that's the reason why Cambodia are more keen to go to ICJ compared to Thailand.
But Prof, clearly bilateral diplomacy hasn't worked. In your view, where exactly did the two countries fall short in managing this dispute behind closed doors, and what could a more regional or perhaps ASEAN-led approach offer that bilateral talks alone simply cannot?
Well, I think bilateral talk can work through the means of the Joint Border Committee. And Thailand also have a problem with Laos regarding the same area, the Emerald Triangle. And Cambodia also have the problem with Laos. The issue is that for this Cambodia-Laos problem and Thailand-Laos problem, the JBC is very active in trying to minimize the physical altercation. So I still believe bilateral talk should be made the clear issue. For example, we in Singapore, for example, we are in Singapore, the Batu Putih, conflict. Both nations agree to go to ICJ, and we accept the ICJ decision. But the problem with Thailand is that they are not that keen. I don't know why they are not that keen to go to ICJ. So that's the reason I said let them resolve it bilaterally, because this is a problem between the two nations, and they are part of ASEAN. And when it comes to pressure from the chairman of ASEAN, it should come from a minimum pressure from the chairman, because we don't want to be accused of interfering into a bilateral problem between Thailand and also Cambodia.
Perhaps, Professor, could moving the talks onto neutral ground, says an ASEAN secretariat venue or even a virtual working group, could lower the political temperature?
Yes, I think that's a very reasonable request. For example, the talk with trade war between China and United States was held in London, if I'm not mistaken. It is considered a neutral ground. Before this, it was in Geneva, I think, but moved to London after that. So neutral ground, yes, plays a very critical point here. But again, I think the chairman of ASEAN already made their voice. Malaysia already put up their opinion. Let the two resolve their problem bilaterally. Because, yeah, Malaysia also have problem not in terms of border with Thailand, but in terms of skirmishes in the southern Thailand. But I think we can talk to each other. So I think Malaysia is taking similar approach that let's talk between the two nations first. And I think, yes, we can go to the neutral ground. For example, Secretariat, ASEAN Secretariat in Jakarta is a good choice there. And it can cool down some hot temper if the discussion was held in the neutral ground.
And Prof, ASEAN actually has a mediation mechanism, the High Council, but it's never been activated. Why is that, Prof? What political sensitivities or procedural red tape have kept it from being used? And is that a missed opportunity in the cases like this?
Well, it's not a missed opportunity, Amiro. I think the sensitivity of this particular border dispute is very sensitive, and only the Thailand knew about it. Only the Cambodia really felt about it. So why the High Council was not activated, because it doesn't want to portray that they are interfering in the local dispute, or in this case, a member's dispute. It is same as when Malaysia put a criticism on Aung San Suu Kyi government a few years back regarding the Rohingya. The Myanmar felt very upset about that, even though we have the right to say, because we are the burden of taking off the Rohingyas. So in this case, similar with Cambodia and Thailand issues, it is a very sensitive local issues. When I say local, it is between Thailand and Cambodia. If the High Council of ASEAN, jump into it, maybe I think they read it differently. I think that's the reason why the High Council of ASEAN, the mechanism, was never used in this particular border dispute.
And in practical terms, Prof, what's the first thing that should happen now to prevent a repeat? Are we talking about better military-to-military hotlines, or perhaps local ceasefire protocols, or something more ambitious at the diplomatic level?
Well, I'm more inclined to say that last Friday was the start of the JBC between Thailand and also Cambodia, the Joint Border Committee talks. So still let the talk, go on first, so that they can really identify what are the problems right now. No, there are problems right now. Let not be, skeptical about it. Let not put it aside. There is a problem, and the problem is a very sensitive issue that was used both by Thailand and Cambodia to prop up the the nationalist feeling between the two nations. So I think that's the best. I think that's the best way to resolve it. Let them talk first, because they knew the problem. And I think when this particular issue used as to prop up their patriotism of each Thailand and so Cambodia, it became a very critical and sensitive issue, and let it be the talk between the parties involved at this particular juncture.
And Prof, whenever a border tension rises, we often see outside powers take interest. Do you see any signs that the US-China rivalry or other external players are starting to shape how countries like Cambodia or Thailand to react to each other on the ground, Prof?
Yeah, but not on this particular case. I think still United States or China, yes, United States, and I think China is very close to Cambodia, and Thailand somehow or other close to United States. But both of these two superpowers, I haven't seen yet they encroach in this particular issue. But for the most, I think for the best of it, I think the French, I think, should take responsible for it, because they left Indochina without a pure demarcation of the border between Laos, Cambodia, and also Thailand. So, but so far, as I've seen, there is no direct interference from these two superpowers, especially China and United States. I don't see that happening right now. So I'm hoping that it will remain that way, because when the superpowers are jump in, then there'll be a lot of other problems that will be creeping in.
And there's a long-running criticism that ASEAN struggles with an identity crisis caught between non-interference and the need for collective security. Do you think that's fair? And what's exactly needed to shift politically or institutionally for ASEAN to act more decisively and when land borders are involved, Prof?
Yeah, when you mentioned about collective security arrangement, let's go to the EU. I think EU is a good model. ASEAN always be compared to EU. In terms of EU, the 37 nations, in terms of economy agenda, they have one voice. But in terms of their own security, each 27 nation have their own agenda. So in this case, collective security for ASEAN, I think each ASEAN nation, the 10 ASEAN nations, have their own agenda in terms of security. But in terms of economy, I think we can go to one voice. So basically, ASEAN, Amirul, we have three pillars. And basically the economic pillars, the social pillars, I think can be fulfilled. But in terms of politics and defense pillars, for example, the security pillars, each nation has their own agenda. So it's very, very difficult, even for the High Council, even for the chairman of ASEAN to interfere in this particular case, because they said, this is our security, this is our sovereignty. So it's going to be very, very difficult for both of these entities, I mean, the chairman and also the High Council Secretariat, to interfere. I think that's the reason why I still believe, Amirul, that let them two nations talk to each other, resolve to each other, and accept the decision made by their own members of this particular nation.
Or perhaps, Prof, do we need a formal charter amendment, or could leaders strike an informal understanding that still respects its sovereignty in this case?
Yeah, I think Treaty of Amity is a good example that ASEAN pursued. For example, ASEAN plus United States, China, Australia, New Zealand, and other plus nations accept the Treaty of Amity. I think that there's a charter that ASEAN, not the real charter, but the addendum of the charter. But again, I think respect of sovereignty, I think the border dispute, I think Malaysia is a model. I like to say we are the model, that we have problem with Indonesia, we have problem with Brunei some time ago, and Thailand, and also Singapore, but we resolve it by talking to each other, by creating a committee. So I guess, do we need another specific charter? I think it is implicitly said that each nation, when they say that don't interfere into other domestic issues, meaning that you have to respect their sovereignty. But when it comes to borders dispute, the dispute is between the two nations. It encroaches to the other nation. So it's going to be very difficult for the charter to put in paper that respect each other's sovereignty, because it's been said in other ways, Amirul.
Well, there's still a lot to unpack on the border tension between Thailand and Cambodia. And when we return, we'll ask whether Malaysia, as ASEAN chair, can turn this diplomatic flashpoint into a moment of regional leadership, or if the bloc is once again stuck in neutral. We'll take a short break and we'll be right back after this.
Nak coklat?
Hari ni tak boleh. Nanti saya kena dengan mak saya.
Pepsodent baharu disahkan halal. Mikrokalsium aktif dan Proflorida kompleks membantu memperbaiki lubang halus akibat makanan manis sebelum menjadi kaviti untuk perlindungan maksimum. Pepsodent.
Daulat Tuanku.
USME Astro AWANI kembali ke Ipoh. Ayo koma jumpa teman di AEON Mall Kinta City pada 28 dan 29 Jun. Naik taraf perniagaan anda dalam dunia SME bersama penaja utama Unify Business serta rakan strategik kami. Dibawakan oleh penaja utama jelajah jiwa SME, Unify Business, rakan digital pilihan anda.
Siapa tu?
Sepatulah. Siapa lagi?
Wah,
Cantiknya kau. Anda minta,
tahu tak nak cerita sebenarnya?
kami bagi.
Cuci muka guna mentega. Astaga. Aku nak ajar Arjuna. Stop!
Sepatu Reunion Live 2025 secara langsung di Astro Prima dan Astro Go.
Welcome back to ASEAN Kita. We're still with Professor Azmi Hassan, geostrategist at Akademi Nusantara, as we dig deeper into what the Cambodia move means not just for Thailand, but for ASEAN's credibility as a peace builder. Now, Prof, there's a let's broaden the lens beyond Cambodia and Thailand. What are the dormant or unresolved border disputes in ASEAN worry you the most right now, and what should leaders be watching for as an early warning signs of escalation in those kind of places, Prof?
Well, the most critical part this case, Amiro, is the South China Sea, especially the EEZ, the Exclusive Economic Zone. We have problem with Brunei, but we resolved it a few years back during the late Tun Abdullah Badawi as the Prime Minister. We have problems with Vietnam. We have issues with the Philippines, and not to say we have huge problem with China. So when you ask me about the flashpoint, the border dispute that we need to look after is basically the South China Sea. I think the bilateral like Cambodia, Laos, or Cambodia, Thailand, it can be resolved easily because the superpowers are still not there yet. Malaysia, Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, for example, it was a very big issue a decade ago, but not right now. But again, as I see it, South China Sea is a big issue right now because not only it involves China, the superpower here, but it also directly involve 4 ASEAN nations, plus in a way Indonesia. So to answer your question, Amiro, the flashpoint right now is not at the Emerald Triangle. It's not between Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia border dispute, but it is in South China Sea.
But Prof, some say turning to external courts like the ICJ in this case is a last resort. Others argue it can actually reduce political tension. But in your view, under what conditions can international adjudication actually strengthen ASEAN unity rather than undermine it, Prof?
Yeah, I use the example of Batu Putih. Both nations, Malaysia and Singapore, agreed to go to ICJ. And also the Ligitan Sipadan issue with Indonesia. Both Malaysia and Indonesia agreed to go to the ICJ. But in the case of this particular border dispute, only Cambodia really want to go to ICJ. Thailand doesn't want to go to ICJ. As I mentioned before, I don't know why. But I think the best method, if the two countries cannot talk to each other, then the best is we go to the neutral part of it, which is the ICJ or any arbitration court. But again, it needs the engagement. It needs the pursuit of agreement within the two nations. But Thailand, from day one, said they are not going to ICJ. They want to talk bilateral with Cambodia in this case. So whether Thailand succeed to submit their complaint to ICJ or whether ICJ came out with a decision, I think it will not go anywhere because Thailand say they will not accept the ICJ decision. I think that's where we stand right now.
Or perhaps, Prof, could an advisory opinion, rather than a binding judgment, give both leaders room to save face while still clarifying the law, Prof?
Well, ICJ, yeah, I mean, ICJ decision is non-binding. It's just an advisory. But again, I think similarly, if I put an analogy, when United Nations asked ICJ to conduct an advisory mission, whether the occupation of Israel in the West Bank, whether legal or not legal, I think that really helps in this particular case. Since Israel do not accept, it doesn't matter, it does not accept. But again, with ICJ, it is a non-binding, it's an advisory, and I think that's the main reason why Thailand doesn't want to go to ICJ, because ICJ will conduct their investigation, their inquiry based on international law. And I think Cambodia thinks that they are on the side of the law. I think that's the reason why they are so eager to go to ICJ. But again, it's a non-binding. So whether ICJ giving out a resolution positive toward Cambodia, but Thailand will not accept it, I think it will not resolve this particular matter, Amirul.
And Malaysia is ASEAN chair this year, and we've got the year-end Leaders Summit ahead. If you had to point to one deliverable, one tangible sign that shows ASEAN is improving its conflict prevention, what would it be, Professor?
Well, not this particular issue, because in this particular issue, Cambodia-Thailand border dispute is not the job of the chairman to interfere. I think the chairman did give the advice, please talk together beginning last Friday during the joint border committee that Thailand, Cambodia have. I think that's the key issue here. I think to answer your question again, what are the main points for the main job of conflict resolution for ASEAN chairman is all about Myanmar and also about South China Sea. I think about Myanmar, Malaysia as a chairman has given out their strategy, put out a permanent representative so that the agenda of Myanmar will be on the agenda table every time ASEAN meet, especially on the 5-point consensus. And on the part of South China Sea, I think the chairman put out in the declaration of Kuala Lumpur that ASEAN should not be siding with the superpowers. And it was mentioned that because ASEAN siding with the superpowers in the South China Sea, that's the reason why Beijing is very happy with the ongoing discussion of the code of conduct for 15, 16 years. I think these are the two main points, I would say, the remaining 6 months, Myanmar and also the South China Sea.
And Prof, ultimately, what does a stable strategic end state look like here? The militarized corridor, or maybe joint patrol command, or to complete ICJ mandated boundary demarcation back by third party guarantees? What does the end state look like here for Cambodia and Thailand situation?
Well, the end state is, Amirul, I think both sides should be happy. When both sides happy, meaning that their sovereignty is intact. But how to achieve that? I think that's going to be very difficult. I don't believe that is achievable through ICJ. I still believe that this particular end state, meaning that both sides are happy, is through JBC, the Joint Border Committee talk. I think that's the best means to achieve the end state. Both sides are happy, is a win-win situation. Thailand doesn't feel that their sovereignty is being hand-pinched, or in this case, Cambodia, their sovereignty or their security is being threatened in this case. I think that's the particular end state that can be achieved, again, I said, through the JBC discussion.
And some experts suggest that a full land border code, but some say it's too ambitious. Could defense ministers at least agree on an interim rules of engagement in this year, Prof?
Yes, very true enough. I think when you mentioned the commander on the ground, they take the orders from maybe the defense minister in this particular case, and also the line of communication. And if I'm not mistaken, there are a line of communication between the top defense people in Thailand and also the top defense people in Cambodia. There is an open line of communication so that they can talk to each other if something critical did happen. If the commander on the ground gave the real situation to their bosses in Thailand, also in Cambodia. So I guess this particular line of communication, I think the first step that need to be, to be adjusted or to be made it more clear so that both sides can talk easily when conflict arises.
Well, that's all the time that we have on today's episode of ASEAN Kita. We would like to thank Professor Azmi Hassan, geostrategist at Akademi Nusantara, on his analysis on the border dispute between Thailand and Cambodia. The border disputes may be about lines on a map, but what's really at stake is trust between neighbors and within ASEAN and with the world watching. Whether diplomacy can win with the day depends not just on courts, but on political will. That's all the time that we have on ASEAN Kita today. I'm Amrul Aiman. Thank you for watching and see you again next time.